What's up, champion? Good, man. You lost some weight. You look healthy, bro.
Yeah, I'm changing inside.
That's right.
So we're doing good.
Amazing. Yeah, Clint and I are working on a men's program actually to develop the inner man because seems to be the real work, man. Because you're a spiritual guy too, right? Or kind of like you're aware of the energetic part of it. So it's really good to hear.
Yeah, I've chosen to serve God, and it seems like I'm blessed for that.
Yes.
So
yes,
I'm cool with that.
Yeah, man, it's so easy to yell at the buildings or, blame other people. But then we take personal responsibility and say, what am I doing? You're like, holy Lord, what am I doing? That's the real accountability.
When people are outwardly negative and negative,
right.
It usually is a condition of them telling themselves that on the inside, and they're probably treating themselves the same way inside, and not even knowing it most of the time. So that's what is needed is help for people. So
100%.
Yeah.
I heard someone say 80% of our conversations in this lifetime are with ourself to ourself.
Yeah.
I start to pay attention to my thoughts in inner words. I just came across the book and the author of Conscious Language, Robert Stevens, and I interviewed him. It's very powerful. He's very particular about the language, but I think, as you know, government, gubernari mente is the control of the mind. And so these words actually mean something. And so I'm trying to be more intentional with my language, more and make more declarations, speak into existence what I see, what I desire to see on the planet, and start with me. So,
what I've found recently that I want to really harp on, is limitations, people's mental limitations.
Yes,
I've been listening to this audiobook called "Can't Hurt Me" by David Goggins. You ever heard of that?
Yeah, he's a powerhouse.
Man. Yeah. And he's basically by listening to that audiobook, I'm learning that I haven't scratched the surface as far as, pushing myself. So
right on.
Yeah.
Yep. It's like, well, this is when Einstein says, imagination is more important than knowledge because knowledge is what we know, and imagination includes all that ever was or ever could be. And so it's all possibilities versus, oh, this is what we know.
Yeah.
You see Paul here. Welcome, Paul Enslaved. How are you, sir?
Hey, what's going on, David?
Hey, man, thanks for taking some time on your travels, man. I know you're just going to pop in for a little bit, and you're welcome to stay as long as you like. We got good Trent Goodbody here, and Bobby, and Mark, and Clint, and people trying to learn about free traveling and whatever's on your mind. Definitely open to hear and learn. Well, you said you're doing all types of producing or producing content and speaking, so probably you might be fatigued and not too much, things you want to say, but you're welcome to say them all, and that's why we're here.
Yeah, I was just listening to you guys and see where it kind of goes.
Sure. Yeah. Well, this is the monthly confab that Clint and I put together about a year ago. After we done a course, we did hey Jason, we did the Don't Fear the DMV course, and then Clint did a course with Fritz, and who else? A bunch of other right to travel people. Everyone's got their own different angles, and fight the tickets or pay it or put private plates or how to talk to cops. All these various scenarios that we are facing in a police state where rights and oaths don't matter to these sworn individuals. So it's just a monthly
that's
time.
Fine. If rights and oaths don't matter to them, then their legal society and legal system doesn't matter to me. So, I really don't care. I don't engage with them other than to try to help them understand what it means to be an honor-able, respect-able, trustworthy man. If they don't want to get on that train, that's the train that I'm on. So I do what I do for me first, right? I'm centered in self while these folks are self-centered. So I know my truest self. I know what I am and what I'm not. I just stand on that and keep it moving forward. Everything else is fear, right? I'm in faith. So all they could do is put me in a box or kill me. And what I've come to learn is that martyrdom is the highest hope, so to speak, or the highest level of faith for a spiritual warrior. So I'm not a violent man, but you know, if I'm walking spiritual faith like the Christ of being in that way, then my highest form of attainment and legacy could be to be martyred for what's true and what's right. So that means going to a box or being killed like the Christ of being. What else is there?
I hear you, man.
It's Holy Week.
Yeah, well said. Well said. It's the Gandhi consciousness, the Christ consciousness, where you can take my body, but you can't take my soul, my spirit. You know, see, I'm connected to Source Almighty, and it's so interesting that the martyrs do live on. You know, and I'm curious what your thoughts are on the. Did you see the Utah case? Maybe feel free to chime in too, Trent. But there was a Utah case. Was that a month ago or so? Maybe 3 weeks ago. 25-year-old young kid, sharp dude, and had private plates on his car. And
Chase
then
Allen, right?
say again.
Chase Allen.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Any comments on that situation or lessons or
Well, when
Yeah,
I
you wanna
watched
go
that
with that?
video,
go ahead.
I watched the video and it seemed like he needed to know more than he did.
Yeah. Yeah, he didn't have enough information, I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really much matter. You know, I mean, again, we can conjecture. It seemed like a hit to me. You know, we
Yeah.
could argue that, you know, he wasn't as, I guess, tactful because we could all be, you know, after the fact say, well, you did this not just right or that not just right. I mean, they stepped back and all unloaded on him. So either it's a psyop, some folks might say, or it's the real deal. And they want everybody to see that. Hey, you want to go this path? Here's what happens to you. You know, so it's a Sicilian message as far as I'm concerned. They just fucking whacked them and showed everybody and said, you want this opposite road? Here's what it comes with. Well, I signed up for that. So you're not telling me nothing I don't know.
Right. Yeah, no, you're all in, brother. I've got a lot of respect for you, man. And some of us have been caged and had our property stolen and guns pointed at us and all these things. And it does seem
Well, you
there's a
think I want to sit in a bed somewhere and get my feet chopped off, dying of diabetes and being obese like the rest of these motherfuckers anyway? Right? Like, what's the point? You whack me out in front of the world and cement my legacy and I die almost instantly. I'm not even going to feel nothing anyway. So, you know, it's like pain and death is assured. Suffering is a choice
right.
on some level. And I suffer more living like a slave than I do them putting 1,000 bullets in me at once and me instantly leaving the fuck up out of here. I'm not afraid of the process of death. Death is part of life. So once we surrender that and we face our death and go past it, past the fear into faith, there's nothing else to live for if not truth and what's right. You see the alternative.
Right.
Well,
Those cops out there have itchy trigger fingers too. I feel like in the Salt Lake, man, them cops.
Yep.
Hey, that's okay, bro, because this thing always goes the same way. Some folks might say, I'm an expert now at speaking like them. I learned from this guy, Clausen, right? So some folks might say that that's okay. They got itchy trigger fingers when there's 8 of them and one guy who ain't doing nothing. But a day is going to come when some folks somewhere are going to have the same itchy trigger finger back. And we're going to see how the punk ass cowards deal with that.
It really, you know, it's just a matter of time before that pops off. Really.
Well, they
You know?
keep murdering people in the street like this on 6 different views of camera. It ain't going to be long, but they know that because these are agents of chaos. They thrive on creating chaos and then making order out of it. So they'd love to have another depression, greater depression, civil war, on and on, like they always do.
They want the violence, in my opinion, because violence is their strength. And that's why MLK and Gandhi, even though they're mostly statists, you know, they stepped into love and stepped into non-cooperation and non-participation and simply exercising their rights. And that takes a lot more courage than to pull up a gun and go to war. But it's definitely a test of courage that humanity is under. And I think will come out, but it's definitely getting high stakes energy and animosity, unfortunately.
Well, we don't actually know if he pulled the gun or not, do we? I mean, there was no camera angle that showed that, but the gun was out of the holster when they pulled him out of the car.
Yeah, I think the cops are hair trigger trained. If they see a gun, they're morally or legally justified and protected to unleash the bullets. My guess is nothing will happen to those cops, unfortunately. And in my take, because I've been arrested multiple times doing that, is what I noticed. Two things. One, the tonality of the cop in the very beginning was very aggressive. So at that point, you're dealing with life and death. You want to
But David, let me back up a second. Where in their training, if they're got hands on a guy and he's supposedly reaching for a gun, are they taught to take 3-5 steps back, take their guns out and shoot? That doesn't make no sense. First
No.
of all, it's against common sense and intuition and instinct. If you already got hands on somebody or close to somebody and you see them going for a gun, you're going to step back and draw your weapon, or you're going to go for that gun with them or try
Right.
to use a different form of escalation to try to secure that weapon. Doesn't make any sense.
No, these are low-level security guards. Unfortunately, man, these guys are working for a paycheck. And I've had cops tell me, we're like video recording them. And I was like, yeah, man, you keep doing this, you'll get fired. And this guy's just like, I'll just get a new job. So it's like, oh, this is just a paycheck for him. For most of them, it's a pension, it's lifetime health insurance after 25 years. So it's that consumerism that schools ingrain in them. And there is no like other people's lives. Whereas like you value and I value my life and other people's life. This is sacred. But cops shoot anywhere and they'll back them up. We're dealing with political organizations. We're dealing with organized crime, running the media, and very sophisticated. But anyways, I thought it was unnecessary and very sad, because it sounds like Chase's parents were freedom people and raised him to be a freedom man. But when you're surrounded by 6 guys with guns, you got to think, survival at that point. And he sounded like a good young man. It was really tragic to see him go down like that. But his name will be hopefully remembered for a long time.
Right.
But
So men and women can't have guns on their lap around them anywhere else, or the servants might just pull all their guns out and murder you. That seems to make sense, right? Like all these qualifications that everybody wants to give. Oh, well, the gun was out, it was on his lap, it was here, it was there. It doesn't make a fucking difference. Do you believe he was going to use the gun on you? I didn't see any of that, but you couldn't see much, right? So
Right.
you're gonna, I guess, have to believe their testimony as they block the cameras. I would believe purposely, because they know where all the body cameras are. They know where the angles are going to be. They're only going to release certain sides of it, and a lot of it's going to come out in some form of discovery somewhere, right? I would suspect whoever that guy is up front, that's going to get the best angle. The guy who shot him through the front windshield, right?
no, they opened his door, and then they were going to unbuckle him, I think, and they saw the empty holster, and I think his gun was on the floorboard of the car. The other thing is that the tonality, he didn't hear the tonality, and the second one is he didn't let these guys know he has a gun. We're dealing with low-level people who can't think for themselves. You ever heard the thing, Paul, like cops have a certain IQ level that if they score above on an IQ test, they're not allowed to join the force?
Yeah, I get all that, but I'm not accepting that. There's something about the way this all played out as it's a coordinated hit to me. They didn't like this motherfucker. They knew how he rolled around. They knew the stock that he came from. They just didn't like him, and they wanted a reason.
You know what? Cops have targeted people in all kinds of communities. He could have been targeted, watched for a while, and they could have all decided that it was just his time to be an example.
That's true.
First of all, is that guy, see, because now when I watch these things 3 and 4 times slow-mo, I start looking for other stuff. Is that guy wearing a black wedding ring?
Yeah.
Okay, so Satanist devil worshiper. See how quickly I do that? And they'll say he's shallow and judgmental. I'll just say it's a worldly, infidel devil, right? Who's got a black wedding ring on because he's probably a death worshiper. So, they got certain squads of death worshipers that love nothing better than to just ride around all day and put people in the dirt that they don't like.
Why is people with black wedding rings devil worshippers?
Again, it's a subconscious thing to me. I'm sort of being flippant, but I've done this a long time with a lot of people. And what I find out is if you look at somebody's presentment from their haircut to their body language, to their eyes, the windows to the soul, to the choices of accessories, all of it kind of comes together to formulate, I guess, a profile, right? So again, typically, what type of normal human being do you know who's loving and caring, who goes out and get a black wedding ring?
I know two of them. Two of them right now.
I mean, I'll wait, like I know it's going to be judgmental and it's going to make people sensitive, all the emo people, but seriously, like who paints their nails black and gets black wedding rings and paints the walls black except a death worship?
That's insane to make that claim, but okay,
I didn't make a claim. I told you that I could build a profile the same way your masters build profiles off everyone based in the subconscious. I didn't make a claim.
Well, he said he was being flippant, and I think I think it's righteous to be angry at the situation. We got to make sure we're choosing alliances with each other.
Okay, how about this, David? Let me help him out. Forget the black wedding ring. How about the black uniforms from top to bottom with the black military boots and all the black equipment and all the on and on and on. Black being the symbol of ignorance, darkness, and death, right? It's all a coincidence. The black eyes that look like sharks too when I look them in the eyes. It's all a coincidence.
Devil's in the details.
I
Oh
think
man,
the
you can even
reason,
take that further and say dark psychology tactics, ordering commands at the guy, and
I was going to say that the reason why they're probably in black, and if you actually look at the history of police, at one time they looked like civil servants, if you go back 50, 60 years ago, and over the years, they've been increasingly militarized. And that is for psychology. It's an intimidation.
Right. Again, the judge wears a black robe, and the black robe is similar to the Grim Reaper. So we're dealing with a Shaitan, a Saturnalian cult, right? They're death worshippers. Didn't the Christed being say the synagogue of Shaitan, right? So these folks have been and always will be death worshippers who were under the archetype of the beast system. And that's the color, and that's what they fly, right? Just like the false flaggers. They fly the black and white skull and crossbones. They're death worshippers. Always have been, always will be. They're pirates. They don't live by the code of men and women on the land. They're scum.
Okay, isn't that what all legality is? You have to have a license to do what therefore is unlawful. And these men and women are choosing to, not all, of course, they have their bad apples, but most of these public servants are choosing to rule and regulate one USC, one insane persons. Their first code is anyone that's doing lascivious subscription within that state of religion is being an insane person. It's their very first code. Their second code is their one USC two parish. So the local precinct that the police that you are describing in uniform are of parish by one USC2 precincts. It says it right there in the code.
Right, but let's go back to the first thing you said. You can't license something that's unlawful. It's why you can't give a license to murder people. If something is unlawful, it can't be licensed. If it's not unlawful, it doesn't require a license.
Okay. We agree. But they are dedicating their lives to, just like the military. People don't come down on the military because there's valor there. They think it's patriotic to go die for a banker's war. But when it comes to local district police in the local district, it's all this dark and gloom. But these people see the worst element of the day, so to speak. Now, that doesn't mean that some people don't get caught up and tied up in it. But what I'm saying is, I'm not of the assumption that they're all bad. Just like
Well, let's now make this real simple. The definition of a good human being is one who can ascertain right or wrong for themselves objectively and do it every time, regardless of their fear. These folks are all defined as bad people because they're either following orders or sitting by and watching other people follow orders that are causing other people who've done no harm, loss, injury, and harm. So by definition, they absolutely are bad people because they're either bad directly or around bad people. So they're indirectly bad because they're not trying to stop it.
Have you been a bad people before in your life?
Absolutely, I have.
Okay, so as these people still be bad people, as we're following your narrative, should we go out there and cause them more harm in their mind by triggering them while they're in this PSPD state through ADD?
So now they're the victim?
No, I'm saying I think we should have a meeting of minds with them. Just
Right,
because,
a meeting of minds. Well, how do you meet with a mind that is unsane, as you say?
Well, I don't think you do it on the side of the road. That'd be the first thing. Right?
Yeah,
the
I mean,
training, they're trained, bro. Like I had a cop one time. I was in Santa Cruz, and my car was parked. I was at the beach, and they were flashing their light on my car when I had private plates on my car, and they said, "Is this your car?" I said, "Yeah," and he says, "What's?" I says, "Is there anything going on, sir?" He says, "Yeah, there's illegal plates on it," and I said, "Have you heard of?" I said, "Do you know the difference between a traveler and a driver?" And his knee-jerk reaction was, "Are you a sovereign citizen?" That was his knee-jerk reaction. So I was like, "Oh my!" So that's the labels you putting on, Paul. Like these guys have labels they put on us, and I think it's justified to put some labels on them. But I agree, holding court on the side of the road with armed thugs that have low IQs and no um, accountability, we got to understand it. So it's a matter of, if you're going to pull a gun out, what are you going to use that for? I understand self-defense, but you put a gun up around a cop, there's no chance. That's the
Is
challenge,
there
I
a
think.
chance that that cop could have put the gun in the car?
but that's the point, man. That's the
Yeah.
point. Is that
Yeah.
again, I don't need to wear a black costume to be discerning and know that if it doesn't make sense, it's probably not true. You yelled out gun and then all took 10 steps back and blew him away. Doesn't
Yeah.
make any sense.
He didn't even have a chance to say one word.
Right.
Doesn't make any sense. If you're
Yeah.
already in the car with the door open and the gun is not already in his hand pointed at you, you're going to get to that gun or his hand before he gets to it.
Yeah.
So something's not adding up. They yelled gun, stepped back, blew him away from 6 angles and claimed there was a gun there. So it was either there and they knew it was going to be there and they seen it before and they used it to do a hit on him, or they threw it there after the fact. Because again, no, I don't care training or not. Nobody in the heat of the moment who sees someone going for a gun who could get a hand on them is going to step back and draw their gun. They're going to instinctively reach for that person's hand or that gun to get control of
I
it.
got you. Yeah, I got you, man. Yeah, you would control the gun rather than just step away and annihilate them.
If
I hear
you
you.
step back when someone's going for a gun, you give the opportunity for them to shoot you.
Yeah, that's
It's
true.
instinctual.
Yeah. So, Paul, have you been traveling or having any encounters lately? How you been, man? I haven't seen much. I don't know if YouTube booted you, or if you, like you said, you've been. Wait, what have you been doing, man? You said 7 hours a day for 7 weeks, man. That's amazing. Want to share a little bit with the
Yeah,
audience?
I'm on the other channel now. Proper instruction motivates people.
Okay.
So yeah, the other one had got a strike on it. More nonsense. They're targeting me, with false allegations. So I got that rolled back by communicating with them. Then they put another one on it, got it rolled back again because they're just trying to get it taken down. So I keep fighting them off and having it rolled back. So yeah, I just went over to my other channel and I've been running there 7 days a week, pretty
Amazing,
much
man.
full
Right to
time.
travel stuff or natural law stuff?
Well, it's kind of all evolved / devolved. I guess it's relative perspective depending who you ask, but I tend to do the legal lawful stuff more on demand, so to speak, if somebody comes up and wants to get into it. But I'll cover the breaking news. I'll do an open panel discussion. I'll kind of cover the quote unquote truther movement community nowadays. So it's become sort of like how it's been characterized as a Rikers Island version of The View. Is one of my fans, we'll use that term loosely, says it's the view from Rikers Island. So whatever that means. I wanted to kind of expand away from, because I enjoy broadcasting and entertaining in a way, and just kind of not being pigeonholed to being the legal lawful guy, right? It's an aspect of my life and lifestyle. It's not all of who I am and what I enjoy and what makes me passionate. So yeah, it's you just gotta kind of see it, and either you're into it or you're not. But it kind of incorporates a bunch of different elements at times.
Yeah, I saw something a few months ago, and it was you guys were chatting back and forth, and I thought that was really good. I think it's almost like the method of Socrates, the dialogue, right? So like Trent's a champion, You're a champion, Clint. Some of the people on here, I see Connie. There's a lot of sharp people. So it's like the more you bounce ideas back and forth, Bobby was adding and Jason was adding. So, you know, we all have blind spots. So to be able to hear other people's perspective and not an aggressive, like, I'm right, you're wrong, but like, here's my position, what's your position, and kind of sharpening my perspectives as I go out into the world, I think is really helpful. So I think that long format with the groups that you had, I only saw it like once or so, but it looked really like you were doing some really cool stuff, having some deep conversations.
Yeah.
Clint, what are your thoughts, man? We had a good little run up here, a few minutes about the Utah event there, man. I had to get Paul's take on it, and Trent chimed in a little bit too. I'm grateful. Because Clint's where I got my private plates from and my dash cam. Thank you, Trent. The freedomfromgovernment.org. I still got the dash cam. I had to get my plates off because I was getting targeted down there. It makes it easy for them to identify. I used to have this big phrase on the back of my windshield, which had tinted windows, and it said in white, "Human Rights Investigator." And out of 15 times cops were behind me, I only got pulled over twice and ticketed once. So sometimes they drive past me and go, "Get some real plates on your car," and drive off, you know. So I was using kind of the intimidation tactic of, hey, I'm a human rights investigator. If you pull me over, you're going to have a conversation. And 13 out of 15 times, you know, it deterred them. But I concluded I was in a super leftist statist county. And now I'm in a more rural, more conservative county where there's a little bit of a culture of freedom and leave me aloneism. So anyways, what do you think, Clint?
Well, thanks everyone for being here for sure. This is a very important conversation. And I was saying to David earlier, you know, when we're talking about freedom in one area, in this case, travel, we're talking about freedom in every area, because it's the same over and over again, whether I'm doing courses on health freedom issues or IRS taxation, whatever the issue, whatever the topic might be, the pattern is always the same. And there's two elements that they use over and over and over again, which is they're counting on our ignorance, and then they use intimidation. And they kind of go hand in hand. If you're ignorant, you're more intimidatable. If you're intimidatable, you're probably not going to educate yourself. But at the same time, the opposite is true, right? So the more you learn, the more courage you have, the less you're willing to be intimidated, or you're not so easily intimidated because you understand some things. You got some understanding of who you are and who police are, or at least who they're supposed to be. And at the same time, there are people who, for whatever reason, they're just tough people, or they're, you know, nobody tells me what to do kind of people. And so they already are not intimidatable, but they may lack the education. So, you know, that's really when I'm doing these courses, and I really hope this conversation is filled with more education for us on every aspect, like literally the statutes themselves, but education on who we are as people and how to operate amongst each other as honorable people. And that we find a place in ourselves that's not intimidatable. We need to stop being intimidated. But it's not a small matter. When I say that, it sounds easy, of course, but you know, especially when there's guys with guns surrounding your car and yelling at you, get out of the car, get out of the car. You might be a little intimidated in that moment. So it's something to strive for, something for we the people to grow up. Kind of, we've been infantilized in the sense that we have allowed the educational system to completely miss the point of who we are and what is our nature and what's the proper role of government, and all that is purposefully overlooked. Then we've also been entreated with so many conveniences and luxuries, if you will, that we like the soft life. We don't want to go up against. We're very easily intimidated because just the very thought of somebody raising their voice is like intolerable to so many people, that when a cop comes, he just can assume, you know, we're going to do this the hard way or the easy way, and you know, boom, you fall in line. So it's become so easy for them to intimidate us. So I'm working on both those angles, knowing that they work together to help myself and others educate themselves, and in that knowledge find the truth in ourselves, which then translates into action in the way we talk to others, and then to also find that courage in us to not be intimidated, just to be able to stand face to face with somebody. You don't have to demonize them necessarily. You may know they're a demon, but when you're talking to them, just let them know that you're not intimidated, and that actually changes their tune a lot of times. Sometimes they'll double down on the intimidation, in which case you need to double down on your your solidity, your groundedness, and stay firm. Other times when they see you're a substantial human being, you're not easily intimidated, they will change their tune and maybe talk to you differently too. So I'm just really happy, first of all, to have so many people with so many real life experiences to bring to this conversation, because in the end, what I've just said is like a lot of theory and a lot of surface level stuff. It's critical what I'm saying, but it's going to happen one situation at a time. If I could wave my wand and just like everybody all at once be free in their mind and understand all of these things that most people on this call now very much understand, that'd be one thing. But in the meantime, it's just one, at this point, it's like baby steps, one little interaction at a time, one traffic stop at a time, one driver's license renewal at a time, one, and that's where we're kind of up against the wall, because as individuals, we don't, they have such force. They have such force to bring to bear on the individual, and they know that there's mind viruses. So if one individual gets away with it, so to speak, that encourages others to start going, wait a minute, the cell door is open. He just walked out. You mean I can just walk out like that easily? And that's something that's too attractive, and they can't allow one person to go free, because that could be a model for others. And so they have to make examples of us. And right now we're in a position where individuals are hung out there on the highway all by themselves, and it's too easy to make examples of them. And then, if you go on YouTube and you type in, freedom to travel or just sovereignty, any number of stuff, you're going to get all kinds of videos right up front that make fun of people and show the failure, so you can almost call it sovereign citizen failure porn, because they just keep so anybody watching that's like, oh, look at those idiots, look at those fools.
Clint, real quick, because I'm going to jump out, but let me just touch on this. I know I touched on it before, but this is exactly the point. For worldly people, they'll always tell me they're laughing at me, right? Like the Tao says, you tell a wise man of the Tao, he immediately starts to embody the Tao. You tell a fool of the Tao, he laughs at you and goes about his day. For a worldly infidel, they think it's a sav set fail. I go, you don't get it. I'm succeeding now more than ever. I'm standing on what's true and what's right and going past my fear into faith. Your fear owns your life. That's why you think I failed. I'm succeeding. I'm doing what you can and won't, because I'm not a coward, right? So it's that simple, right? I'm not saying I don't feel fear. I'm saying courage is feeling fear and going past it to do what's true and what's right. If you don't do that, you're considered a coward. So if you're okay with being called a coward, you could call me a failure, because I'm succeeding more than ever, like I said. Fear doesn't run my life. Remember Fear Factor, like Joe Rogan? Well, fear's not a factor for you. That's why they did that, because once you go past your fear into faith, you're now in serenity and peace, and you're inspired and empowered. It can't touch you any longer.
Fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, it's great to have you. Please hang out as long as you can and keep sharing your wisdom. I see Connie's raised her hand. You're unmuted, Connie. Go ahead.
Okay, yes. I think I may have mentioned it before, but I do believe that Washington State has cut the police by 50%. It's just feeling that way, because I got stopped a couple of years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, with a DOT plate on, and it's pink. It's got pink with black numbers. The guy said to me that Robin, of the guy that helped me with my secured secured party creditor. He said, "Oh, that's going to call attention." And then my friend Jim just said, "Yeah, you're calling attention." But I don't get followed. I keep my eyes open. I learned something from somebody I was dating once. He got off the road the minute a cop was behind him. He got off the road, and I was a young lady. I learned that, why is he doing that? He's avoiding some problems. And so I learned that. But then more, my knowledge that I've gained in the last 6 years about common law and what all the racketeering that's going on is that knowledge makes me fearless. But I'm an actress and a director and a high school teacher, so I'm fearless anyway. But once you learn, through accomplishments or doing what makes you afraid and getting through it, then you get that fearlessness that carries you through these intimidating times. And then recently, I found out that you need to say things 3 times. Three times, that's the charm, and they will stick, or they are found to be. I didn't object, 3 times in a courtroom once, and I should have. But there's something about the 3, and just the knowledge that I picked up in the last 6 years, plus the lack of police bothering us and following us and so forth. So I'm glad to say that. I feel a lot better about being on these roads here in Washington, but I have to head to Montana and Wyoming in the next couple of weeks to work on a ranch, and I'm a little bit leery of what's going to happen if I am bothered by the Montana, because I was bothered by a Montana thug a while back near not near Sandpoint, but I calmed him down and I told him what was going on, and he'd leave me alone. So yeah, you just have to get fearlessness through doing what you fear, and then finding out a whole lot of knowledge that it's all racketeering, all of it. It's all fraud. Every damn bit of it is fraud everywhere you look.
Thank you. Absolutely. Yeah, I personally haven't had any interactions with police regarding traffic. My interactions with the police were in the last couple of years, not wearing face masks and having the cops called on me. And I got to tell you, my education, my relatively recent education in the common law, and then just being with you guys and hearing your stories, it really transformed my attitude towards police. I didn't realize how much I was afraid of police. Just their whole shtick. They come all uniformed up and all this accoutrement on their waist, including a gun, and just they know that intimidation is their number one weapon, because they don't want to have to pull a gun. They don't want to have to use physical force, because they'd have to dirty their hands, maybe with some exception, like we were considering maybe that fellow in Utah was targeted. But for the most part, they don't want to have to dirty their hands. They just want to be able to use their voice or their attitude in order to get voluntary compliance from you.
Did you see Cliff, the film? Did you see his film of how he talked to those guys?
The Utah?
Yeah, did you see the film of it?
Yeah, we were just watching it just before you come on, I guess.
I felt he was a little too arrogant, even though I called the chief and the captain about that, and I said I was a high school teacher and the kids in my class want to know why there was a young man executed. And I just put it down just as it was. I said, why did he get executed like that? And the guys said to me, oh, well, we were in training. There just happened to be more guys there for training. But no, it wasn't training. They were calling for backup. He was lying. So I don't believe a damn thing the captain or the chief says. And the mother was quite arrogant as well. And I pity the family. I'm sad over that young man. And yet I confronted that police office, precinct or whatever it's called, just saying as a cover, my students want to know what's going on with this. But when I listened to him talk, he had an arrogant kind of stance, and he did not have the knowledge to talk the way he should talk to those men. But she had something prior to that made them angry. I think she was suing the chief. I think the mother was suing the chief, and so it did look like the mother said, it was a brutal murder.
That's news. The mother was suing the chief. That is interesting.
Yep.
Wow.
Yes,
Yeah, that
other
might have been.
information that you're not told. You don't get the whole story a lot of the time.
Wow.
But you can't be arrogant, and you you have to have a lot of knowledge. If you're going to do this kind of thing, you have to be very knowledgeable and brave and calm and polite, you know, all that stuff.
Yeah, it's this video has got a lot of attention, and I hesitate to think how many people watched it and say, you know, I'll never, you know, speak honestly or provide any resistance at all if I get pulled over.
Right.
You know, I hear Black people talk about parents. They say they have to have the conversation with their kids, which is basically, hey, you know, you're Black and they're already prejudiced against you. So no matter what a cop tells you when you pull over, put your hands on the wheel, visible on the wheel, and whatever they say, you say, yes, sir, you comply 100%, because you have to, because they're itching to, because you're Black and they're well, white or somehow prejudiced against Blacks, they're gonna take any opportunity to.
And Cliff, do you know that most of the men that are going to become American nationals and secured party creditors are men of color?
Oh yeah, they understand freedom. They
Yeah,
understand the
yeah, more than
pursuit
men
of freedom.
white men. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not. If someone says, you know, to an average white person, you're a slave, they're like, what are you talking about? Some Black people, when you say you're a slave, you know, they like, yeah, always have been, you know.
But stats will prove that there were more white slaves in this world in all of history than there were Black slaves. That's the stats, and it's huge amount of white slaves.
Yeah, the racism is divide and conquer. That's just like, hey, Black guys versus white guys, the yellow guys and red guys. Dude, what about the Native Americans? So government seems to be the cause of all this, right? The legitimacy that somebody else has the right to use force, coercion, intimidation against anybody. So I think if we can get on the same page, like, we're all screwed. Like, there's white people, there's Mexican people, there's brown people. We're all on the same team, except those guys who are getting paid by taxation, aka extortion and robbery. That's the issue. And to help kind of clarify it, the monarchy used to be seen as legitimate, and now we're getting to the point where the Democrats and the Republicans are like, yeah, I think they both suck. Yes, and now we're evolving, in my opinion, to self-ownership, to personal responsibility, is voluntarism, voluntary relationship. So I think this is a paradigm shift as significant as the Magna Carta, as significant as the Declaration of Independence, where you're a king and a queen in your own self, just like me, and nobody has any authority over me unless I explicitly or implicitly tell them, hey, I agree to this contract, I agree to this agreement. And I think that's the kind of where it's all going, because are we going to vote somebody in? Yay, we're going to vote this guy in. I was a big Ron Paul guy in 2012, you know, a little bit in 2018. But what happened? They stole the election. And any Trumpers are like, oh, they stole the election. Yeah, they steal elections. And you can't delegate a right that you don't have in the first place. So if I don't have the right to take your money, I don't have the right to declare war. How did the Constitution get the right to declare war and do taxes, like to lay taxes, power to tax? Like, they don't have it. It's just a criminal organization. So I think, yeah, Black people, brown people, white people, yellow people, we're all getting destroyed or at least victimized by this institution. And what is the remedy, right? What is the solution? I got a federal lawsuit. I don't know if Trent, have you ever sued anybody? I know you've defended some cases, and you've had some victories too. Have you ever sued anybody,
No,
like
I
gone on
haven't,
the
but we're looking at that. I mean, the place that I live, we have many people that use the private notices, and the cops have told us that we have safe passage, but there are some issues with some people and police and government workers and city workers, and it looks like it may be a necessity to kind of, you know, letting them have a learning experience,
Yeah, right. Yeah, there was a guy on not this call, but another call, Steve Emerson, and he was saying he's a older guy, but he got buddies from Vietnam, and he's like, you got to put these guys in check, and all of a sudden these politicians, somebody has an accident, or somebody, their assistant has an accident, and he was like promoting, and I was like, wow. So it's rising where it's like, what do? These guys are blatantly harming peaceful people in mass, and that's almost what he was referring to. So here we are. Understanding, well, Declaration of Independence, right? Like, if somebody hasn't read that, at least you should read that document and understand the history of this country. It's pretty bad now, but this country was founded on that document. And of course, the banksters trying to, take over, and with Andrew Jackson and Abraham Lincoln, all these guys, and eventually, with Woodrow Wilson, they took over the money printing power, and they knew that was the real power. They can buy off anybody. So, we're at the end of that experiment, and that's why they call it the Great Reset. They're trying to reset us back to a new currency, and that's a whole nother conversation, Clint. I don't know if you want to touch on that. Looks like Kat has a question and Aubrey has a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Aubrey, jump in.
Hey there, my question is really short and simple. So I missed the first part of this meeting. How do I watch the replay?
Oh, it'll be up on our Rumble channel. You can watch all of the Free Traveler events. They're up there, yeah.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Good question, Aubrey. Thank you.
thanks. Kat, do you want to jump in?
Okay, sure. So Rumble channel, where is that exactly? Do I just put it in Google?
Commoner Law Group. Search Commoner Law Group.
Okay,
both YouTube and Rumble.
Okay, I'll just look that up.
Some things can't go on YouTube. I've gotten quite a few strikes. So, but all the stuff's on Rumble now.
Yeah,
okay,
YouTube
that's like
starts kicking us off of speaking truth and freedom. Rumble seems to be a free speech platform. I don't know. Odyssey is pretty decent, and BitChute, I don't know. So I asked kind of what you guys prefer. But see, in warfare, they try to break up communication, right? If you can break the communication of your enemies, then they can't communicate. So that's what this is all about. That's what the censorship is all about, in my opinion. So anyways, yes, Rumble. Thank you for that question.
And common law is what I'll put.
Commoner.
Okay, sorry.
Group.
Okay, I have a question. I live in Berkeley, and then Oakland's next to Berkeley. I don't know if you've heard these things called shot sputters. That is very common in cities, and people want them so badly. But I wanted to let you guys know too that in Oakland, there's shot spotters, but for whatever reason, and cameras all over the place. But for whatever reason, like when a woman is walking down the street and she gets robbed and killed, for whatever reason, the cops can't ever figure out anything or even look into it for the most part in Oakland. But I had a friend of a friend that somebody broke into their home in Oakland and they shot him, and he has to stand, and the police showed up and arrested the guy that shot the guy that broke into his house, and he has to stand trial. So it's just very interesting how these shot spotters work for people that, own a home, work hard, and they protect their property, but they can't do anything about like some real crime, somebody walking down the street and getting killed for no reason with these shot spotters. I don't know if anyone has ever heard of that.
Well, I have actually. I haven't thought about it much. They're like microphones, right? That pick up specifically when shots are fired. That alerts police to shots being fired in the region. Correct?
Yes, and so for the most part, Oakland, people are starting to talk about how Oakland in particular, and it's probably might be like this in other cities if people become more aware. They're really not doing anything about real crime on the street, somebody getting killed with these shot spotters. They're really going to people's homes that shoot an intruder. instead of the real stuff. And to me, I feel like you should have a right to protect your property if you're harmed and somebody breaks into your home with a gun too. So I don't know what your guys' view is on that.
Yeah, well, it's a little bit apart from Free Traveler, but it's definitely an example of the surveillance grid that's being used. There's, whether it's cameras or microphones to pick up to watch our every activity.
Yeah, and
You don't
people
want to
are
have a video camera. Have a video camera. Video cameras are almost more powerful than guns. Of course, if you got an intruder and you're afraid for your life, you're allowed to defend yourself. The courts are corrupt. The private prison industrial complex is destroying people's lives. I think 60% of prisoners in the country are there for nonviolent offenses. So we're dealing with a systemic, multi-generational organized crime syndicate that is coming towards its end. And I don't know if you heard of the exit and build strategy, which is to exit the coercive systems and build the world that you want. Whatever the next thing's going to be, they're going to try to use what they did with the whole scamdemic, in my opinion, with the grocery stores, the schools, and the hospitals. So I know people that are building their own private grocery stores, private health clinics under a PMA, and then private schools. So everything's basically, in my opinion, got to be redefined, re-envisioned, and understand that the government's a criminal organization. And my mother was a public school teacher. I know there's good people in the system, family members that are in the system too, but they're compartmentalized and they don't know, they can't see the bigger whole. And so we put the mosaic together. We've done so much research and we found out, yeah, Agenda 21 is about enslaving humanity. Agenda 21 is about controlling all the aspects of our life, 15-minute cities. So what's the solution is us knowing who we are, where do our rights come from, who are we, what is our participation in it, and you're always allowed to defend yourself. So that's I think the key thing is that they're going to say you can't do this. You do what you think is right? That's the main lesson. Like, you have a moral conscience, and Gandhi, MLK, St. Augustine, Thoreau, all the good guys say an unjust law is no law at all. You do what you think is right. And this is where we kind of feel alone, but there's a lot of people. So there's a great awakening that's happening. And it's so important to have these kind of community conversations because we have the solution, voluntary consensual relationships, and then how to maneuver while this whole thing goes down is what I think.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure that if there's anybody here who has a specific case that they're dealing with, whether you're trying to work your way through a traffic citation, or if you've got some creative way to not register your vehicle, or somehow avoid the driver's license, we definitely want to hear about those real life examples. There's no substitute for the concrete examples that you may have. So if there's anyone, please raise your hand, make sure to share your experience, because we're all here. I believe we all kind of on the same page. We all know we're free. That's premise number one. And then it's a question of what are we going to do about it? And, David and I've been said many times on these monthly confabs and Free Traveler that, these traffic tickets, they set the amounts just high enough that they're painful, but not too high that you won't consider fighting it or looking behind the curtain at the man. There's just so that they basically want to get as much revenue out of you without risking upsetting the entire scheme. So, but I'm wondering if anybody does determine that, well, that's it, I'm going to invest the time and energy, I'm going to fight this because it's the righteous thing to do. We definitely want to hear from you.
Yeah, I had some good news, Clint. I wanted to share with you. I can't remember if I told you, in the Bay Area, they have the fast track there, right? 680, 880. And that was one reason I liked the right to travel, because I had private plates on my car. They couldn't send me anything, right? I drive through. I didn't get the fast track little thing. It's a little device that you got to get permission.
Transponder.
Yeah, you got to travel on this road, and you got to, your gas tax pays for the road, but now you got to pay $1, $3, $7, $8 for something that you're already paying for.
Talking about
Well,
tolls.
Yeah,
Mhm.
right. So I never got the thing. So every time I drive through it, they would send me a bill, and it's $3, $7, and I feel like a slave paying that. I don't want to do that, so I put it off, because it comes back around on your registration of your card, right? Every year. So they started sending it to me, and I'm like, I don't feel good paying it. I don't want to pay. So on the letter, I used to open them, and then I stopped opening them. I just put return to sender. I refuse the contract, trying a bunch of different things, right? So I do not consent. I think those are the 3 ones that I tried. Anyways, I renewed my that registration this last month or two, and I was expecting to have like a $500 bill from these fast track tickets. I look at it, there was 0 fast track bills on my registration. And I was like, wow, I don't know what I did, but I did say I do not consent. I did say return to sender. I refused the contract, some of these phraseology, and something happened. I don't know if it's because I changed locations or something. So anyways, that was some good news that I wanted to share, because that made my day, right? I was expecting to fork out another $500, and I didn't have to. So it's like little victories like that, refusing the contract, that made me happy. So maybe someone else can try that and try it. This is called practice, a law practice. So try it out. See what happens if you go through a fast track, you put refuse the contract, return to sender, something like that. See what happens to you. I'm curious to see what happens in your situation. You're muted.
So you opened the envelope, or you didn't? In some cases, you opened the envelope and sent what was inside the envelope back in their own predetermined.
Yep. Basically, I stopped opening them because I knew what it was. They're telling me I owe money when I never consented or contracted. And then I just, on their envelope, they would send me their envelope. I wouldn't open it. I would just return to sender, refuse the contract. I do not consent. And then it came out next year. So there was nothing on my registration. So I'm still kind of like holding my fingers and holding my breath a little bit. But that was positive, right? So we're trying to find solutions to save our money, save our life force, and not be extorted by these people. See ya, bro.
That's some real good information, David. I mean, that's what I mean by concrete information. So if you're sitting there and you have a toll bill in your hand, it's worth the try, and because it shows that at least in one case it works to send them back in.
Yep.
Did you want to say something, Natasha Small?
Yes. So I had, I just jumped in when you guys were showing the video about the guy and the cops with their guns out and everything. I had asked a question of David. I thought I asked everybody, but I asked him, would it be better to challenge in the traffic courts than challenging the police officers? Because it seems that, when you're challenging the police officer, again, you don't know how they're, some of them are maybe hot-headed. Some are a little bit more, they know how to stay calm. But I think, like what I would ask in the question is that it seems that when they have that black costume on, they seem to be more leaning on that authority of that costume, right? So any challenge that they get, they lean on that authority, and it's basically, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, and you're just being difficult. So would it be better to challenge in the traffic court, knowing that all of us here know that this whole thing is a big money-making scam? So if you go into the traffic court and you challenge their jurisdiction over you in regards to traffic infractions, which have no basis for us. But if we challenge them on that in court, instead of doing the cops, I was just trying to get anybody's opinion on that. What do they think about that?
Well, that's what we've been talking about just about every month since we began these monthly free traveler confabs a year ago, and every situation is different. There's just, I guess you could say they're general rules, but we've had examples. In fact, you can go back to again Rumble and look up our presentation with Paul Unslaved, who happened to be on with us earlier, and we basically dedicated the whole first half of the conversation to this one interaction that he had roadside with a cop, and he was able to challenge the cop, but he did it in such a way that the cop didn't feel just put down or whatever psychological dynamic. He was actually able to get the guy to stand down. So it's different, there's just different situations, and that's, I guess, when we were watching that video today, I think the most wise thing that we kind of got to is that he wasn't, this particular traveler who ended up dying, supposedly, right, Natasha Lee? If you want, I guess we can give some space to the idea that the whole thing was theater for a psyop, but I wouldn't put it against them. But the point is, he wasn't listening to the cues. So you can say, hey, I'm a free traveler, I don't contract with you, I don't consent to any kind of thing, I'm a free traveler, and the traffic code really only applies to people in the commercial capacity.
Right.
And they might say, oh, really? Tell me more about that. Sounds curious, sounds interesting. Or they might say, like they did in this case, I'm not here to talk about that kind of stuff. I forget the exact response, but we are saying that guy should have known in that moment that he's not going to get anywhere with these guys.
Right.
You can kind of judge the situation. They're all hot to trot. And I think the other element is when there's more than one of them too, that they kind of have to look good to each other. So they're not going to be as open to an exchange, perhaps. Who knows? Every situation is different. And the general wisdom is you got to be able to, push it as far as you can. But when there's an indicator that you need to stop pushing it and comply, unless you really want to take a big risk, and like you said, deal with it later in the courts or some other legal means. There's ways to even challenge it before you get to court.
Right.
In the courtroom if you get that far. And we've done. See, it was 2 months. Was it January? We had a presenter who basically shows you how you can win a traffic ticket as long as there's no actual crime, that is, no one got hurt, and he has a whole process for that that includes planning to lose in the first court case but then win on appeal. That's how he has consistently won. He's hacked the system. He gets the legal system. So it depends on how much you want to it's really how much you want to test the system at different stages along the way from the very
that's kind of what I was thinking, because over the past 24 years my husband and I have been going, anytime there's any kind of traffic infraction, we go to the court and basically they just dismiss. And since 24 years we haven't really paid anything as far as that goes. And I helped several people through the last 3 years. One lady had 3 things in one: drunken driving, no registration, as well as she didn't stop at a stop sign. And I basically told her what I knew, what I learned, and it worked. So I was just thinking, because some other people were asking me, but why don't we just talk to the cops? The cops should learn this stuff. And I always tell them, well, you just never know what cop you're going to get. And how, like you said, how far do you want to take this? And I just always think maybe it's better, especially if you're trying this for the first time, just do it in the court system. Thank you.
Yeah, sometimes you can get justice in the court system. I was targeted politically, so it was hard. But like, if you're just going there for that thing, I've tried to fight it in the court. I'm curious, Natasha, what you would say when you go to court. I was in 2 separate counties in California, and I was basically saying that I never agreed to their rules or in these kind of things. And then both times the judge said to me, "Do you have a driver's license?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Oh, then the speeding speed limit applies to you." And I didn't know what to say. And that was, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. So there's a language thing. And sometimes even these judges, some of these judges are like just as low IQ as the cops. God bless them, you know. But I'm curious what you would say to get someone off a DUI or what that was like. Because a DUI is big money, right? That's what this is about. It's money and power. And I think a DUI is worth like 10 grand last I saw to the state and these agencies and all these cockamamie, you know, groups. So yeah, so you can fight them in court a lot smarter than fight them on the side of the road. You're literally dealing, you know, again, bless these people, but you're dealing with meathead thugs or meathead amoral people. They literally have no moral code. They have no moral compass. They have no honor, but they have the thin blue line tattoos on their arms. So, you know, it's like a fraternity. If you guys ever went to college and saw sororities or fraternities, you know, it's this herd mentality, you know, like the military, you know. So they don't use logic and reason. They use emotion and gang type stuff, colors, symbols, phrases. And you're like, what's going on here? They don't even know each other, right? They don't even know like the where these people come from. They're just like, he's in my class, you know. I was in a fraternity too, and it was a co-ed business fraternity. So I was like, this is for business. And all of a sudden, we got to memorize stuff. We got to regurgitate the purpose. We got to do these things that have no idea what we're doing. And it was our pledge class. So it was quite an experience. I can only imagine what it's like at the highest levels of power and finance and influence. You know, we're dealing with really powerful entities. So anyways, Natasha, I'm glad you're winning over there. Thin blue line. Yeah, look, heroism, bravery, determination, strength, commitment, reliability, feelings, and services. Okay. The only bone I'll give them is that sometimes good cops exist. Sometimes, you know, good things happen. But, you know, every blind squirrel finds a nut every now and again, too. I mean, but, you know, again, I come from Smallville, so there's good officers, I would say, but they have no moral code. They'll do what they're told. It's a chain of command. And, yeah, very sad to see that. Every time I see that, I'm just like, very sad. You're supposed to serve the people.
Yeah, and again, they have a whole narrative, just like with the sovereign citizen thing. They've been trained. So the thin blue line for those law enforcement officers who wear the thin blue line and even people in the public who wave the thin blue line flag, it's a sentiment that they've got that starts when there's a fallen officer. So they've died in the line of duty. And so for a lot of them, it's very emotional. And it also reminds the living officer that his life, you know, he could lose his life any day that he goes to work. And so, you know, it has a lot of emotionality for the officers. I've watched a lot of videos of cop watchers who make a point to talk to the cops about their thin blue line, and they tell them, you know, don't you realize that thin blue line separates you from the people, that people see that as a gang, or that somehow you separating yourself, you know, from the rest of us, and that you have a different set of rules for you than for the rest of us, and how that divides us. But the cops will say, no, you don't understand why we have the thin blue line. The thin blue line represents for us, you know, the fallen soldier and the heroism that underpins our profession, that we're not just like any other profession, that we are special, and that we put our lives on the line. And they'll say things like, well, who are you going to call when you're in trouble? And they really hate to hear sometimes the cop watchers will say, I'd never call the police. There's no way I call the police for anything, for any reason, because they want to believe that they are, the heroes.
Right.
And they've got a lot of emotionality. And that's how they justify, in fact, a lot of their behavior and why they don't always have to follow the rules and why they can bend the rules, because they're the ones out there on the front line making the call. And yeah, they have protocols, they have rules, they have rules of conduct that are published for every police department, but they feel that they get to bend those rules because they're right out there risking their lives. So as much as you may agree or disagree with either of those narratives, you just have to be cognizant. You have to be aware that yes, when you're talking to somebody about the thin blue line, that you're not just going into a blank slate. They're like, oh, really? I never thought about that. You're right. I'll take off my blue. Now that you mention it, yeah, I think I'll take it off. I never thought about that. I thought it was just kind of pretty or cute or something. No, they have their propaganda thick, and especially the emotionality behind a police funeral, which gets a lot of attention. A policeman dies, it's on the news. What doesn't matter if it's in your local news. If a cop dies anywhere in the country, you're going to hear about it. So, but yeah, Natasha, would you sketch out a little bit or say about the strategy that you have used that has shown to work?
Okay, so basically the man that taught me 24 years ago, he gave this to me as an assignment. And the assignment, once I learned, was to go out and get a traffic infraction purposely so that we could learn what to say. And he told me that the court system basically, they operate in two types of law, civil or criminal. So he says that's exactly what you want to challenge the traffic court system with. So he says the minute, sorry, I just came in from a walk, but the minute they call your name, of course you answer. And, sometimes the judge will say, well, okay, you're guilty of this traffic infraction or whatever. And you say, Your Honor, can I ask you a question? I don't understand. I don't understand what you're saying. And then the minute they say, well, what don't you understand? And he said, simply say, is this, am I in criminal court or am I in civil court? And basically at that point, the judge will look at you and say, they'll look at you and they'll say, okay, sit in the back, because that's what they've done every single time. Get in the back of the line, sit down, and you wait till we call you again. And so usually by the time they called my husband or I again, it's okay, your case is dismissed. They don't even want to answer the question. We've had situations where the judge will say, my husband had a judge that said, that was a crime. Don't you know that speeding the speeding limit, the speed limit is a crime? You're breaking the law. So my husband simply asked him, well, if I'm acting and doing something criminal, don't I have a right to face my accuser? Can I face my accuser? And the judge will look at him and keep trying to push that issue about breaking the law. He says, well, I want to face my accuser. Well, the policeman, I said, then the judge will say, oh, well, the policeman saw you do it. He said, that's not what I asked you. I asked you if I could face my accuser because you're telling me that I committed a crime. And at that point, the judge says, sit in the back. So he sits in the back, comes back up, your case is dismissed. And then the same thing with another judge told me, well, you're in civil court. I said, oh, that's why I asked, that's why I said I didn't understand, because I thought civil court means that there's a signed contract and that there's a breach of contract. Yeah. And so then the judge looked at me and says, well, you have a driver's license, don't you? I
Uh-huh.
said, yes, I do have a driver's license. And he said, well, that's the contract. I said, well, that was never disclosed that it was a contract.
Oh,
And so then he says, that is the contract. Go read up on your HRS laws. I said, I did read up on the HRS laws, and Your Honor, I have a copy of the driver's license application here. And
nice.
nowhere in here does it tell me that this is a contract for me to be able to drive. It
Uh-huh.
says, I said, the form is called an application. I said, Your Honor, would you speak honorably to me?
Mm-hmm.
So, don't, like, we don't want to be in dishonor. I'm just asking you, would you speak honorably to me and in good faith tell me the truth?
Yeah.
And he says, of course I will. So I say, okay, well, if we're in civil court, wouldn't you ask if I broke a contract? Isn't it right for me to ask to see the contract that I broke? Yet this is an application.
Yeah.
And the judge just looked at me and it was like, didn't say a word and said, okay, get in, go back and sit down and I'll call you later. At the end, it was basically dismissed. And so,
Nice.
yeah, it's always been the same thing, civil or criminal. And I never let them get me off of that issue. And so the girl that had the DUI, she was panicking because she was going to lose her driver's license. And I explained to her what a license is and all of those things. And I said, we didn't know. We do what we're told. And that's
Right.
what we've been told. We have to get the license. But don't be dishonorable and say, you know what, and try to give them the definition of what a license is. Some of them actually do know. And, they're just doing their jobs and they don't care.
Yeah.
But some of them don't know. They never went that far and looked at it that way. And so the point is the activity that I'm doing, is it a crime where I actually hurt somebody? Or is it something where I breached the contract? And, I always tell them the driver's license, when you get your driver's license, that is not a contract. That is an application. If it was a contract, they should have told me so. Why did you not tell me so? And so that's always what it's been. So she was they kept telling her, you need a public defender. So she asked the public defender the same things that I told her to ask. And the public defender was like, oh, that stuff doesn't mean anything. How do you plead? She said, wait, I don't understand. And I always tell them, when they try to trap you into giving a plea or anything, always go back to, you don't understand. So that's what I've been doing for 24 years. And I see that it helps other people, because I always tell them, use the same thing. The last girl just had her success last week. They charged her $200 for a speeding ticket. And I told her everything that I just told you guys. And they dismissed her case, but they wouldn't give her back her money. So she made a trial. So when the judge came and called her, she says, look, I don't understand why I'm here. And I said, if you start like that, I said, first, before you go into, is this civil or criminal, just tell them, look, they just dismissed my case, but didn't give me back my money. So all I'm asking is, that's why I came to court, because I needed my money back.
Right.
And then if he brings up the traffic issue, go back to the original question, is this civil or is this criminal? And, I rehearsed it with her for 6 hours because, of course,
Wow.
you're scared, right?
Yeah.
And I just kept reassuring her. And I said, always go back to, I don't understand. I don't understand. If they say you broke a contract, these are contractual rules that you broke. Well, where's the contract that I signed? It was never disclosed to me that this was a contract. And so that's all I've ever done. So.
Wow. Have they ever threatened to appoint you a public pretender or give you a mental evaluation?
Well, that girl that had the DUI, they did appoint her a public defender. And so she kept asking the public defender the same thing. And when they got back into court, she said, Your Honor, I don't agree with what your court appointed public defender, because I still don't understand. I just want my questions answered. And I figured this is the form to do so. And I told her, you gotta talk like that. It's not a matter of talking like, like having any kind of attitude. It's, you really have to act like you're in this stupid, like,
Yeah.
I'm
It's a game. It's a theater. It's a theater.
Right, exactly. I never thought of it that way, but yes.
Well, no, you're right. We like when you talk to the honor with your honor, even though they're not honorable, it's
Right.
like it's just the what you say. The show is literally just a uniform and yeehaw. It's just the criminality has been masked now in society,
Right.
and now it's like these guys do it, and oh, it's the code and it's this and that. But then I've actually heard that one, Natasha. I'm glad you're using that one where you distinguish between criminal and civil, and there's like a different pathway, because once they declare it's criminal or civil, now they got to follow through on what it is, because right now, as far as I know, this is like admiralty, law of merchant, law of the sea type stuff. I have no idea what I'm involved in. I'm signed, they force us into contracts. I mean, this is serious criminality.
Well,
Yeah,
let's get to let's actually that's where I want to get to. So we've had other guests on, and people have been talking about what are these courts in reality, and people have suggested that it's neither criminal nor civil, and that it's, the best term I've heard is administrative, and that, or legislative, in the sense that the legislatures of the states have passed these vehicle codes, and in the vehicle codes they instantiate these courts that aren't really courts, in the sense that most legal scholars would think it's either criminal or civil court of justice. It's really just an administrative task that they have to perform, which is designed, of course, to make money. And also people have said that the judges themselves get a cut of every dollar that comes through there, and adds to their pension, and that's like off the books. I want to see some real physical evidence of it. But Natasha, I mean, that's a wonderful strategy, because if you ask the question, is it civil or criminal, they can't answer either one, because I think it's neither. It's neither. So, but Natasha, I'm just asking you, from your understanding and your experience, do you think it's a civil venue, or do you think it's a criminal venue, or do you think it's something else? Yeah, so I'm unmuting you.
Okay, yes, okay. Exactly what you just said about administrative, it's administrative, it's neither, because it is just basically following in Hawaii, where I'm at, it's following the Hawaii revised statutes. And again, those statutes don't really apply to us, but they are administrative rules or regulations that govern the Hawaii state government, right? So it's not a criminal or civil matter. It's just an administrative procedure that they're going through, and that generates money for them.
Now, are you aware of the all caps name, Natasha? You think that's what's coming in here? Because if they start tapping into this SQV trust, it's like there's corporate fiction that they have tricked us into volunteering for. I don't know how it connects there, but there's something big, because when I was fighting my case down in Santa Cruz, I got a guy, and they got a affidavit of somebody who was using my likeness and like QSIP number from the court case. So I got a guy with an affidavit who said he verified with his own eyes that they were using my name and court case number in the securities market. And I literally have it on video. I put it in front of the judge. I was on a Zoom and I said, hey, Your Honor, we have to stop everything. I told him what's going on. There's fraud going on. I want to know who did it. I want to know what their names are, please. And we got to stop right now. And he just deaf-eared that. He didn't hear any of that. He just kept going through. So that might be it. I mean, that might be a big breakthrough that's happening right now, because we see we're putting the pieces together. And if we say, I don't understand,
Right.
is this criminal or civil, Your Honor, and we go in there playing the game, Your Honor, and being nice with them, that sounds like a pretty good strategy. That's amazing. You've been winning for so long, Natasha. You got to have your own show featured to your techniques and get the whole script on here. I mean, this is really
Well,
powerful
actually,
stuff to
I
stop
do
it
have
in the
to
court.
Yeah, I do have to say that I enrolled in Clint's and yours and Suzanne's free traveler program,
Nice.
and I watched all your videos, and you guys have inspired me to actually talk to people about this. You know, like, I don't go out there and like make any kind of program or anything. I just simply tell them, look, it's time for us to put a stop to this madness. People are having a hard time financially, and that's not really our fault. It's the actors that are in our government that are causing this pain to us. And it's like we have nothing to say about it. But I think we do have power, at least in something that we have to deal with on a daily basis through the traffic courts. So let's understand the type of law that they're assuming that we know. And really, it is. All our laws are either criminal, where we hurt somebody, there is a injured party, or we've breached a contract. And if they can't say which one they are, then why are they talking to us?
Right. That makes
And
them
thereby,
choose.
right, exactly. And that puts the ball in their court.
Yeah.
And what I realized every time they made me sit down in the back, or my husband down in the back, the reason they've done that is because they don't want anybody else to hear what I'm saying.
Right. This us talking right now is breaking the mind control, because we don't know about the court system. We're so intimidated in there. And then once we stop being intimidated and we start standing in our power, we hold the power. My signature and your signature creates the credit that they're borrowing under. Am I correct? Does anybody else understand that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Intimidation and ignorance.
Amazing. Natasha, that's amazing. Thank you for that information.
Can I add in one more thing on this? And it even though it's not driver related, it is related to the same thing. So as far as going to the bank and opening a bank account, it's the same thing. This is what my mentor had taught me, is that when you open a bank account and it's non-interest bearing, you don't need a social security number. And so I went to go do that, and the whole branch was giving me a hard time, but I kept saying it loud enough so everybody in the in the bank line heard what I said. And I noticed that people were perking up when I was saying that. I said, so the lady was across the counter from me, and she was saying, everybody needs to use their social security number. I said, no, they don't. I said, this is a non-interest bearing account. There is nothing being earned and nothing should be reported. So I can open a bank account number. I mean, I can open a bank account with your establishment. I do not need a social security number. And she goes, I never heard of that. I said, well, go get your banking rules under the UCC and read it. So I had to wait there for 45 minutes. But I kept saying it loud enough so that people would hear it, because I think that's what we need to start doing. Like, that's why I like this group that's here on the call, because everybody here seems to want to do something about it. We just need the roadmap. And I thank Clint for making these confabs, because this is how we learn. But so she came back 45 minutes later. She goes, I have never heard of that. And could please lower your voice? I said,
oh, did she cut out? Natasha, cut out.
Natasha, we lost you for a minute. You broke up. Natasha, come back when you can, please. We've got about 10 minutes left, or less than 10 minutes. This has been wonderful, Natasha. But you know what? Let's just make a point of carving out some significant time to go through this once again. Maybe at our next month's confab, which everyone should put in their calendar right now. That's the first Tuesday of the month, May 2nd, 5:30 Pacific, 8:30 Eastern. I'm not sure what the time in Hawaii is. It's so wonderful to hear you there working on free traveler as well as in the bank. My research shows that that the banks are required to ask for your social security number, but not required to actually get your social security number. And that's the difference. And they've, but you know, every branch and every branch manager has been taught you have to get the social security number, and they don't know the nuances. So they're just ignorant like the rest of us and intimidated like the rest of us. But as like Sue Ann Caesar points out, you know, the social security number itself by law is not intended to be an ID number. It was intended for social security only. And it's actually against federal law to use it as an ID or verification of identification, which the banks are trying to use it as. So you can stand on that as well. But in any case, we're here to establish our freedom, you know, educate ourselves so we're not ignorant, and stand up for our rights, not be intimidated. I can't wait to hear more from Hawaii. Lindsay, you had raised your hand. If you want to chime in, this is the time while we have a few more minutes.
Yeah, hi, this is a really interesting call. I actually wanted to ask Natasha when you clarify criminal or
Civil.
thank you, criminal civil. If it goes to criminal, does that not mean they have to gather a trial and attorneys and all of that?
Yeah, typically we get to in this country we have the right to a trial by jury.
Right. So that's probably why they didn't want to proceed further with her when she asked that, because the judge probably understood, if I'm understanding correctly, that's where that would go.
Exactly. And that's strange why they would assign, and she said she's done this a few times, and you just asking the question usually works. But on the one occasion, the trafficking, I think it was her husband or herself, was assigned a public defender. That's what you do on a criminal situation. And so that tells me the public defenders are in on the scheme too, because any good public defender worth their salt would be like, wait a minute, you know, is this a criminal case? And does that mean we're going to have a jury and all, and somebody's going to stand up and say, I was harmed and I'm the victim? And it can't, I mean, I've heard people, you know, they say, well, the state is the victim, right? So it's in her case, the state of Hawaii versus Natasha, you know, that somehow the state can be the harmed party, which is that's one thing that they have done to us, so to speak, in terms of taking our rights away and avoiding that principle of law that there has to be a harmed party, and you have to be, you know, you have to have the opportunity to face your accuser. Well, how can the state be an accuser? How can the state be harmed? Because it's not a real person, a real human being, in other words.
And then, David, did you file for a power of attorney so that they can't attach a public offender to your name in court?
Power of attorney? No, I signed a power of attorney when I was in jail, because if I'm in jail, I can't do any paperwork, so I had to leave the power of attorney outside. No, if you go to court, they're basically going to say, okay, do you have an attorney, or do you need one to be appointed to you? And then if you say, appoint one to me, 'cause I don't got no money, then you just get a free attorney, and hopefully you get a good one, and you might get a pretender. But if you know the law, then you can stand in your power. That's what the game is about. So like Natasha brought up, if you go there and you stand in, is this criminal or civil? Like, they got to answer that, you know? And so that's a great question to ask. But no, power of attorney was when I was in jail. And so,
well, I know that if you go on trial, that you can file paperwork into the court to be your own power of attorney so that they can't attach a defender to you. I don't know, I don't know 100% to, you know, speak a whole class on it, but and I know that you can do that.
Yeah, then you can do that. I mean, feel free to share whatever cases you got going on. We're here to support each other. We've done the courses and learning. So we're trying to get to the bottom of this and learn how to maneuver the paperwork. Sue Ann Caesar gave us a lot of paperwork, because Fritz gave us a lot of paperwork, man. So the question is, are you putting that paperwork into use? Sending the paperwork. I don't know if you were here for the beginning of the call, but you know, the
No.
fast track stuff, you know, like however we can, trying stuff out there. And
Yeah, there's
that's
more than one way to skin a cat, and it sometimes some things work in one situation, they don't work in another situation. Every state is different, every jurisdiction's different. Some situations are willing to keep pushing it with you. Others, they're like, oh, let's just make this person go away because we don't want they don't want to risk revealing their schemes and their frauds. It's more important to let somebody off than to reveal their scam.
it's all politics. It's all politicking. Who's the one telling who what to do? Like, it's stupid.
it's banking. The courts are a big bank.
Yeah, it's all extorting all of us, property taxes. So little by little, crypto's going to come in. Clint, are you a crypto guy, man? What's your take on the crypto? You see something that being helpful for right to travel in the future here?
Crypto obviously has its place. That's a massive topic. Yeah, we've got just a few minutes. We mostly
All
just
right.
want to say goodbye and thank people for coming. And you know, as we were talking about how hard it is to stay in communication, I ask that you all tell your software providers that you want to receive emails from info@commonerlaw.com. You know, what that sometimes means, like, for example, if you have Gmail, to add Commoner Law Group and the email info@commoner law, info@commoner law. I'll put it in the chat, info@commoner law. Make sure and add that to your address book, or do whatever you need to do to tell your software that you want to receive emails from us, because you know, when you have things like freedom and even the word sovereignty, I mean, I'm not going to change my communications to try to, you know, dance around or self-censor so as to try to avoid the filters that they put in. But it's clear to me that we're definitely, when it comes to email, we're definitely fighting the censors. And so if you could do yourself a favor and go ahead and make sure that your email software provider knows that you want to receive right in your inbox, not your bulk mail, not your spam or your promotions email box. You want it in your main inbox. And it would behoove you just to research your email software to find out how to do that in the first place, because I'm sure there are other emails that you're missing out on. If you check your spam once in a while, you say, oh goodness, how did that get there? I really wanted to see that. So there are ways. Typically, I have to research a little bit to find out, but take responsibility for telling your software provider, email software provider, what emails you want to get. Because I don't know if we don't have email, I don't know how else we're going to stay in communication for the time being. It has been really the best way up until recently. I mean, it just gets worse and worse and worse because they keep filtering us. Words like freedom, sovereignty, you know, just any number of buzzwords. I think they're working against us on this. So let's go that extra mile and make sure to stay in contact with each other. Kat, you got 30 seconds if you want to.
Oh, it's okay. I don't think I could talk in 30 seconds unless people want to stay on.
Very good. There's always next month. I invite you all to come back. David and I will come back. We're working on having a special guest next time as well. And I mean, we've got like 3 people that we really want to get for you, which is a matter of finding out, you know, getting their schedules free on a first Tuesday of the month. And but we have lots of great content moving forward. Of course, as has been acknowledged tonight more than once, it's just wonderful to be together with like-minded people. And so look forward to it every first Tuesday of the month. So David, want to go ahead and send us off with some beautiful
Yeah, man. Hey,
blessings.
this is where are we at? This is April 4th, 2023. Amazing, Clinton. We've done this over a year now. Thank you for everyone being here, participating and sharing. We had Paul and Slave, we had Trent Goodbody here, Kat, who with Jason, amazing ideas, Natasha, Lindsay, Nora, Jerry, Michael, all still here. So I hope you guys all participate in it next time, because the joy of these meetings is adding your 2 cents, getting your opinion there in the circle, seeing what you think, getting your mind active and co-creating with this. Is the confabulatory, I think is the full name. We call it the confab. But it's just a great joy to do this once a month. And yeah, hopefully we get Steve next month or next guy. Very exciting times, man. These are the glory days, my friends. These are it. We're living it. It's going through you and me, and through our energy and communication with each other. We're making it happen. We'll be here no matter what goes down. Whatever the internet goes down. Searching Commoner Law, searching Freedom Lovers Show, David Rodriguez, Clint Grease, and you'll find us, man. There's a great awakening that's happening. Self-ownership is here. And you're a part of this whole thing. It's great to be with you all. And we'll see you all next month. I don't know what it is, but it's the first Tuesday. So I'll be there. I hope you will too.
That's right. May 2nd, everybody. All right. Have a great night. Blessings to everyone, and over and out.
Yes. Peace and love. You got it.